Welcome to Horse Matchmakers, a podcast made to help first-time horse buyers navigate the horse buying process with confidence. We cover everything from what you need in a horse, to understanding what ads are really saying, everyday scams to perfect prospects so you can match the right horse for you. If you haven't been here before, you are probably wondering why this podcast is needed. People lie. The horse selling business is a multi-million-dollar industry, which causes scammers, liars, etc. Today's episode is all about the beginner horse. We're going to think about the average characteristics of a beginner rider and the guidelines we can use to help search for a horse. We're also going to go over a few example ads to help you see just in between the lines of what the seller is really saying. So for our average rider, we have a rider who's been riding for a little over a year. She regularly volunteers at her barn, which gives her experience with mucking stalls, munging, feeding, etc. She does not enjoy having to constantly kick up a horse, but also dislikes having to constantly check a horse. So that gives it some instant guidelines that we'll talk about in a second. She's about 5'7", and she's planning on keeping the horse at her barn with non-full care boarding. She doesn't have a sport, and her budget is $5,000. So we have some instant guidelines. We don't want a more whoa than go horse. Basically, we don't want a horse that you have to kick to get into a different gate. We also don't want a more go than whoa horse. We want a horse where they don't instantly have to give a warning about their speed within the ad, and whenever we're going to visit, we want to make sure that it follows the lines of not having to constantly kick up or constantly check. We are also looking for a horse 15 hands or taller, while keeping in mind that she's a beginner, so under 16.2 hands is something to also add into search. She doesn't have a specific sport, so we're looking in the categories of a former lesson horse, a playday horse, trail horses, western pleasure, show horses, obstacle horses, police horses, all of those little categories that typically are beginners. In this case, we also can ride off high-performance horses, high-speed sports, stuff like barrel racing and roping. Those are typically more expensive as well, so not looking for a performance horse helps us keep that $5,000 budget. We also have some age ranges to add into our search. 7 to 10 years old would be the youngest age range that we go into. The main age range we want is 11 years old to 13-year-old or 14 to 17-year-olds. More experience and experiences is a good idea for a beginner, though we have to also be careful that their experiences don't create negative hats. So, starting with the first ad is a gelding who is 15.1 hands and 10 years old. His ad description reads, "Angel is a big boy that has outgrown me. I am retired and need a ladder to get into the saddle. He has lots of groundwork and I recently sent him for a 30-day tune-up. I do not have time to ride him and he needs someone who will make him work. He does not seem to care for trail riding but has a wonderful smooth trot and canter. He is good for the farrier and loves people." This ad is good in some ways. First off, it gives you a reasonable reason for the sale. It also states that they were sent for a tune-up and had lots of groundwork. This also probably means that they haven't been ridden for a while. You can expect the horse to be a little bit confused for a bit until they can get used to working. Need someone to make them work. This is one of our bigger red flags. The other one calmly states, very clearly states what the issue is. This one can be taken in two different ways. One, a retired older person that can't work him at all, which is what the ad suggests. Or two, he's a horse that requires a lot of work to be safe, so the older person who can't work him very often can't ride him, period. The next part is does not seem to care for trail riding. There's also two ways to take this as well. You can see this as the horse legitimately does not enjoy trail riding and wants a more focused job, which is somewhat difficult to, if you really think about it, it's possible for a horse not to enjoy trail riding, of course, but also they're in nature, surrounded by grass and leaves. So it also can be taken as a sign of spookiness. But that one's sort of you can read really far into it, or you can decide to just ask a question about why they don't like trail riding if you get into messages. Everything else is relatively good in this ad. The height matches, the age matches, as long as you make sure that this horse isn't going to be absolutely insane or hasn't been off for 10 years, then it should be fine. We then have to check for signs of something called a horse trader. A horse trader is someone who picks up a horse from auction, rides them once, probably never more than once, honestly, then sells them for a couple grand to people who can't recognize the size. This gets people hurt and in terrible situations of heartbreak and just money falling out of their wallet because of how much a horse's maintenance costs or something like that. So one of the signs is that the ad uses excessive flowery language. This ad doesn't, so this is a sign in the correct direction that this is not a horse trader. The second sign is that the owner has listed dozens of horses. So let's just pretend that this is a real ad. The owner has only listed this one horse, so we're in the clear. If the owner has listed dozens of horses and they all basically have the same ad, horse trader. If they have listed dozens of horses and some are the same horse with a different story, horse trader. Another sign is a huge, big backstory, all about the tragedies the horse has gone through and has somehow survived to be the perfect horse that never has any vices. Horse trader. Again, this ad is clear though, so these are not. It seems to not be a horse trader. But here is an ad that is 110% a horse trader. Angel is about as close to the perfect all-around trail horse partner as they come. One of the most important qualities I appreciate about Angel is that she is confidently observant of her surroundings and a thinker, not an overreactor. A good trail horse needs to be paying attention all the time to keep from stepping in a hole or off a ledge, etc. You'll see in the video how Angel is a well-trained, sure-footed, highly intelligent, confident, willing, capable, respecting, and trusting of her people partners. And the ad continues going for about 5 more paragraphs, all with the same style of language, just continuing adjective, adjective, adjective. Horse trader. I did actually pull this off of somebody's ads, both of these, and I just changed names and stuff to make sure that like nobody goes and finds the ad. But that was a legitimate ad. Somebody wrote that, and they had dozens of horses listed, all under very similar like descriptions. Being cautious keeps you from being hurt. For example, I once had a client who bought a 6-year-old beautiful gray mare for their 2 kids. This mare was fine for the first 2 weeks. She walked, trotted, loped easily, and had a good stop. These kids didn't really know how to ride, so when they pulled on her mouth, she would like get a little head throwing, etc. But whenever I noticed this, I instantly started training them to try and not pull on their mouth at all. But the issue just got bigger and bigger and bigger until finally she pulled on the mouth slightly too hard. Like, honestly, I was there. I was watching. It was almost as if like 2 wrinkles popped up. The horse broke in 2. It was bucking, rearing, bolting. It was incredibly dangerous and could have gotten those kids incredibly hurt. That's why we don't buy from horse traders ever. The second ad is Tracy, a 13-year-old 15.1 hand mare. Here's her ad. Tracy is a beautiful gray mare standing at 15.1 hands. She's 13 years old and great on the trails. She has been ridden through the mountains, on the beach, through open pasture, anything you go. Kids have ran her in a playday a few times and placed well. Downsizing due to no fault of her own, or selling due to no fault of her own, downsizing our barn. This horse looks great. Trail rides, especially through difficult places, prove for good, non-spooky horses. Running in a playday means she has a bit of go to her, which is great for our average rider because they don't want more woe than go. They don't want more go than woe. And her age and height match up. Of course, before we message that seller, we're checking for horse trader signs. The seller has a few horses up for sale, but she says she is downsizing her barn, so that gives an answer to the question of why the horse is being sold. But it tells me to tread lightly. At the first sign of that being a lie, I'm going to ditch it and move on. Due to the large amount of places the horse has been, I would ask for some pictures of her on the trail if you get to messaging this up. This gives a good sign for them not being a horse trader. If it's like a bunch of pictures of her at the mountain, you pretty much got confirmed that they're not a horse trader. Our final ad is Buddy. He is 16 hands and 7 years old. Buddy is a beautiful bay standardbred, formerly used as a cart horse. He is ready for his next adventure. He has been ridden through trails, pastures, etc., or driven through trails, pastures, etc. Slightly buddy sour on whoever he picks as his partner, but typically only takes a bit of encouragement to move on. There are quite a few red flags here, so let's start with the biggest and go from there. Formerly cart horse. Why did they stop using them as a cart horse? Depending on the situation, people usually use horses as cart horses until they're completely used up. It's unfortunate, but typically true. They also normally aren't taught how to ride, so if you move into messaging a seller on a horse like this, make sure they've been ridden all along. Otherwise, they're not good for a horse, or good for a beginner. If they've only had 90 days, then it's not a great horse for a beginner because it's a green horse, even if it's older. The last huge red flag is buddy sour. If you are unfamiliar with the term, it basically means that a horse really wants to be with his buddy. The calmest cases are when they will call and pick up like a faster walk, a faster trot to get to their buddy. The worst are where they will buck, rear, bolt until they're with their buddy. Make sure you see what reaction the horse has to being buddy sour if you get into messaging the seller. Honestly, overall though, this horse is a pass for a beginner because there's just too many signs that it's also a beginner, so I would just pass. When looking for your dream horse, remember to have fun, but always be cautious. Horses can hurt you, so it's always a good idea to ask as many questions as possible about anything you are worried about. That is all for today's episode. Make sure to tune into next week's where we go over multiple different ads and talk about the red flags and green flags on each.